It started with laughter, as many dangerous things do. We were at our usual Friday night spot, a little candlelit bistro tucked into the corner of the old part of town. Megan and I always ordered the same wine, a dry red that lingered on the tongue, rich and a little aggressive, like her. She wore a black off-shoulder dress that night, the fabric clinging to her like a secret. The neckline teased her collarbones, and her hair, dark, curled, and wild, framed her face with a kind of effortless grace. Megan had this way of looking at me when she was plotting something, and that night, she had the look. "You know," she said, tilting her head with a smirk, "you mixed me up with Amber last weekend." I raised an eyebrow. "I did not." "You absolutely did. You called me AM when we were leaving your parents' house. Twice." I sipped my wine and leaned back. I was tired. It was late. "You three look exactly alike. It's a miracle I don't call you Lily every morning." She laughed, throaty, knowing. "Well, that's comforting." Megan had identical twin sisters, Amber and Lily. People used to joke that their family photo looked like a cloning experiment. Same high cheekbones, same green eyes, same dimple on the left cheek. But to me, Megan always stood apart. There was a sharpness in her wit, a heat under her skin that neither of her sisters quite possessed. Or maybe I just told myself that. "You ever wonder," she said, twirling the stem of her glass between her fingers, "if you could actually tell us apart? I mean, really tell?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward, her voice dropping an octave. "What if, just for fun, we put it to the test?" Her eyes glinted like she'd just thought of it, but I could already tell the idea had been spinning in her head for some time. I laughed nervously. "A test?" "A challenge," she corrected, licking a bit of wine from her bottom lip. "For 1 month. Amber and Lily, occasionally, and only with my permission, will pretend to be me. Just for a moment. A morning. An evening. Maybe a night." She shrugged with a devilish smile. "Your job is to know when it's me and when it's not." I stared at her, unsure if she was serious. But Megan had never been the type to joke without following through. Her smile deepened at my hesitation. "And if I win?" She leaned in close, her perfume enveloping me in a mix of vanilla and something warmer, skin, perhaps. "If you can always tell," she whispered, "I'll give you something special." "What kind of something?" She rested her chin on her hand, her elbow on the table. "A secret gift. One only a man who truly knows his wife deserves." That's when I saw it. The way her pupils dilated slightly, the subtle shift in her posture. She wasn't just teasing. She was hunting. The suggestion was cloaked in flirtation, but something in it felt deeper, more dangerous. Like she wasn't testing my perception, she was testing my loyalty. "You're serious," I said, my voice quieter now. Her smile turned coy. 1 month, Ethan. No tricks, no warnings. Just your instincts. You either know me, or you don't. I hesitated, heart tapping a little faster in my chest. Part of me was amused. How harmless could it be? Her sisters lived close by. We'd all known each other for years. I could tell them apart easily. I was sure of it. But part of me felt like I was stepping into something more, like there was another layer to this, something Megan wasn't saying. Still, my curiosity got the better of me. And the promise of that reward, her tone when she said special, had lit something low in my spine, was too tempting to ignore. "All right," I said, raising my glass. "I accept." She clinked her glass to mine, her eyes holding mine longer than necessary. "Good." That night, we went home and made love with a strange urgency. Her body felt familiar. Of course it did. But something in the way she moved, the way she kissed me, felt like she was already starting the game. Her touches lingered longer, as if she were branding me with the memory of her. Her scent stayed on my chest long after she drifted into sleep beside me. And when she kissed me goodnight, I didn't realize the test had already begun. Because the next morning, when she came out of the bathroom in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, she didn't say anything about the challenge. She just smiled. The same crooked smile I'd seen 100 times. But something, and I couldn't place what, felt off. Had her voice sounded just slightly different? Had her smile curved just a little too high? Was her kiss on my cheek just an inch too low? I chalked it up to overthinking. But as I left for work, I caught her reflection in the hallway mirror, watching me with an amused little grin. I should have known then. The game was already underway, and I wasn't ready. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesday mornings were always the same, Megan would leave for yoga. I'd have my coffee, then catch the 8:15 train downtown. She'd usually come back flushed and radiant, sweat darkening the edges of her sports bra, her hair pulled into a messy bun that I secretly loved. But that day, something wasn't right. She came back earlier than usual. I was still sitting at the kitchen island, thumbing through emails. She walked in with a soft hey, dropped her keys in the little bowl by the door, and poured herself coffee, 2 full spoons of sugar. Megan never used sugar. Ever. She thought it was poison. Sleep okay? She asked, voice casual. Yeah, I said, watching her stir. You? She nodded, but her eyes didn't meet mine. Her ponytail was a little too neat, her makeup too perfect for a yoga class. She sat across from me, legs crossed, absently scrolling her phone like it was just another day. But her laugh, when I told her about an email from my clueless intern, was off. It sounded lighter, too quick. Not the throaty, slow-blooming laugh Megan always gave me when she found something truly funny. This was the kind of laugh someone rehearsed. I narrowed my eyes. You seem different today, I said. She looked up from her phone, smirked. In a good way or a bad way. I tilted my head. Just different. She set the phone down and stood. Walked over to me slowly, like she had all the time in the world. Her hand slid across my shoulders from behind as she leaned in and kissed my neck. Soft, lingering. And then, barely above a whisper, she said, "Don't overthink things, babe." My skin prickled. That wasn't Megan's phrase. That was Lily's. Megan always said, "Don't get in your head," or "relax." Lily, the more enigmatic of the three, always used "don't overthink." I remembered it from dinner conversations. From how she teased me once at a family barbecue for being the brooding twin-in-law. I turned around to face her, heart ticking a little faster. You wearing a new perfume? She blinked. You noticed? Yeah, it's strong. She chuckled and walked away. Guess I got carried away. I'll ease up tomorrow. But Megan never wore that kind of scent. She preferred subtler ones, woodsy, floral. This was sweeter, more aggressive, almost candy-like. Amber's style. The rest of the day felt off-kilter. I couldn't concentrate at work. Her words kept echoing. Don't overthink things. My brain twisted the phrase like a puzzle box. Her voice, her laugh, her perfume, even the coffee, 2 sugars. When I got home that night, Megan was in the bedroom, folding laundry. She looked at me and smiled. Warm, demure, almost shy. How was your day? She asked. I tried to read her face, but it was impossible. She looked exactly like my wife. Every freckle, every tiny mole, even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. But she felt gentler, too gentle. That night, when we went to bed, she reached for me with unfamiliar caution. Her kisses were soft, timid, like she was asking permission with every move. Not like Megan, who knew what she wanted and always took it. She moaned a little differently, too. I noticed it right away. More breathy, less restrained. She clung to me tighter than usual, like she was nervous. At one point, I pulled back to look at her face, to really look, and her eyes fluttered closed like she didn't want to be seen. But then, she said my name. Whispered it with just the right amount of tension in her voice. That one word pulled me under. I told myself I was overanalyzing. That the game hadn't even started yet. That Megan was just being playful. Maybe she was trying on something new, a new mood, a new way of being. Maybe. But the moment we were done, she rolled away from me too quickly. Megan usually curled into me after, head on my chest, one leg hooked over mine. It was a ritual. But this time, she turned to her side, facing the wall, her back a silent curtain between us. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I woke up alone. The bathroom light was on. The door cracked open. And then I heard it, the sound of the front door opening downstairs. I pulled on a shirt and walked into the hallway. As I passed the bathroom, I glanced in and froze. She was standing there, toweling off her hair, her real perfume wafting up, that familiar soft jasmine she always wore after a shower. My real wife. Megan looked up at me in the mirror and smiled like nothing was strange. Morning, she said brightly. You're up early. I stared at her. She was already dressed in her usual robe, her towel damp, hair still wet. Where were you? I asked, my voice sharp. She blinked. What do you mean? You weren't here when I woke up. She smirked. I've been in the shower, genius. But her phone was sitting on the counter, buzzing. I didn't even mean to look. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. It just lit up, And the message was right there, plain as day. Lily. He didn't notice a thing. My stomach turned to ice. Megan saw me freeze. She followed my eyes, then reached calmly for the phone, turning it face down. You're really starting to overthink this, she said softly. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She walked past me, brushing her hand across my chest as she went. And I realized in that instant, I hadn't been with my wife the day before. I didn't ask her about the text. I should have. I wanted to. The words burned holes through my skull for days, but every time I looked at her, really looked, all I saw was the smug curve of her lips, the flicker of knowing in her eyes. It was like she wanted me to ask, like she was daring me to. So I didn't. I couldn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I started watching her. Closely. Obsessively. The game had begun, and I was already behind. Every movement, every inflection, every scent, I studied them. Megan was a woman of rituals. Her toast was always a little too burnt. She tucked her hair behind her left ear, never the right. When she laughed, genuinely laughed, she tilted her head back just a little. But now, some mornings the toast came out pale. Some days she didn't laugh at all. Other days, she laughed too hard at things that barely warranted a smile. It was subtle, maddening, like someone had taken my wife apart and put her back together just slightly wrong. There was a morning I woke up to find her humming in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing one of my shirts. Her hips swayed gently to the music. It was the kind of scene that made something stir low in my gut. She looked so much like Megan. But when I came up behind her and slid my arms around her waist, she stiffened, just for a second. Not in fear, not in surprise, just hesitation. Then she relaxed and leaned back into me like nothing was off. But Megan never hesitated when I touched her. That night, when I made a move in bed, she was bolder than ever, aggressive, even. She took control in a way Megan rarely did, gripping my wrists, whispering things in my ear she'd never said before. Dirty things. Hot things. It wasn't just sex, it was performance. Passion, yes, but rehearsed. A show. And still, I didn't stop. I couldn't. In the darkness, with her moans in my ear, her fingers digging into my back, her lips on my throat, she was a perfect stranger, and I wanted her desperately. That scared me more than anything. Because if I knew it wasn't Megan, and I was almost certain it wasn't, then what did that make me? The next morning, Megan, or whoever she was, stood by the window sipping coffee. I watched her from the hallway, unseen. Her posture was too stiff. Her hair curled differently. Her robe was tied a little too high. It was amber. It had to be. I didn't say anything. When she turned and saw me, she smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world. Sleep okay? Fine, I said. You? She nodded. Dreamed about you. That made my stomach twist. Megan never said things like that, not casually. And the way she said it, almost mechanically, like a line fed to her. I wanted to rip the mask off her face. But there was no mask. Just her. Just Megan. Always Megan. The worst part was that every time I felt sure, they shifted again. One evening, she curled up next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder, watching some old movie we'd seen a dozen times. She was quiet, warm, familiar. She cried at the same part she always did. She reached for my hand at the exact moment Megan always had. Her thumb traced the same lazy circles across my knuckles. I stared at her, confused. This was Megan. It had to be. But then she whispered, I love you, Ethan. And something in me still flinched. Because I no longer trusted my instincts. The sisters, all of them, had become ghosts slipping through my life. At work, I couldn't concentrate. I'd find myself zoning out during meetings, staring blankly at my phone, reading old texts from Megan, trying to find patterns. Anything I could use as a baseline. A memory I could hold next to the present and say, this is her. That wasn't. But the truth was, they were winning. Megan never addressed it. Never confirmed or denied. Just let the confusion tighten around me like a noose. Whenever I stumbled, she smiled. Whenever I paused too long, she kissed me, slow and sweet, like she was rewarding hesitation. One night, I finally broke. We were lying in bed, the lamp casting a dim glow over her face. She was reading a book I didn't recognize. She smelled like lavender, Megan's real perfume, but something still felt off. I stared at her until she finally looked up. What? She asked, lips curling into a faint smile. Tell me the truth, I said. Is it really you? She tilted her head, amused. What do you think? I don't know anymore. She closed the book and set it on the nightstand, then leaned over and brushed her lips across my jaw. The month's not over, she whispered, like it was some sacred mantra. I swallowed hard. Megan, don't overthink it. She kissed me again, slower. You're doing fine. Her hand slid under the sheets, curling around me, coaxing me back into silence. And I let her. I let the doubt melt under the weight of skin and breath and heat. I let her ride me until my thoughts dissolved into nothing. Afterward, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, because I wasn't sure who had just made love to me. And worse, I wasn't sure I cared anymore. It started with thunder, the kind that doesn't just rumble. It rolls, low and constant, shaking windows and vibrating through your chest like something primal. Rain hammered the roof like a warning. The sky outside our bedroom window was a black curtain, pulled tight over whatever boundaries I had left. She came home soaked. No umbrella. No explanation. Just a crooked smile and a wet t-shirt clinging to her body like skin. Shitty weather, she said, kicking off her heels. Her hair was plastered to her face, streaked across her cheeks like vines, but her eyes were bright. Hungry. She looked at me like I was a secret she was ready to confess to or consume. You didn't call, I said, voice low. She dropped her bag by the door and walked straight toward me. There was no umbrella, no jacket, nothing to shield her from the storm. Her bra was visible through the wet cotton, nipples dark and erect beneath the fabric. Her skirt was drenched and clung to her thighs. My breath caught, not because I wasn't used to seeing her like this, but because something about it didn't feel real. It felt like seduction with a mission. I didn't feel like talking, she said. Then she kissed me. No hello. No hesitation. Just lips on mine. Hard. Needy. Tongue pressing past my teeth before I could ask where she'd been. The rainwater was cold on her skin, but her mouth was feverish, desperate. She tugged at my shirt like she was trying to rip the day off me. My hands instinctively found her hips, wet fabric sliding under my palms. She pulled me onto the couch, crawled into my lap like she hadn't seen me in weeks. She straddled me and bit my lower lip, just hard enough to make me wince. Megan, I started, but she didn't let me finish. Her hands were already pulling me free, her breath warm and fast against my neck. We shouldn't, I said, even as my body betrayed me, even as my hips lifted to meet her. And then she sank onto me, slowly, purposefully. There was something different in the way she moved. She didn't ease into it. She devoured. Her hips rocked like waves in a storm, her head thrown back, eyes closed, mouth open. She made sounds I hadn't heard before, sounds Megan never made. She cursed under her breath, whispered things that lit my nerves on fire. It wasn't my wife. I knew it. Mid-thrust, mid-breath, I knew. But I didn't stop. That was the betrayal. Not hers. Mine. Because even as realization burned in my chest, even as my hands gripped her thighs and my head tilted back in helpless surrender, I let it happen. I let her happen, whoever she was. And then I saw them. Her earrings. Golden hoops. Thick. Circular, unmistakable. Amber's favorite pair. I'd seen them a dozen times at family dinners. She always joked they were her armor. Megan never wore them. Ever. My entire body stiffened beneath her, but she didn't stop. She opened her eyes, and I expected guilt. Or shock. But what I saw instead was defiance. She leaned close, her lips brushing my ear. Don't stop, she whispered. Please. Her voice was raw. Not seductive. Not playful. Pleading, and I didn't stop. I held her hips and moved with her, and for a few more minutes I let myself drown. I let the thunder mute the screams in my head. I came inside her, hard and shuddering, and when I did, she kissed me so softly it broke something inside me. Afterward, she stayed straddling me, chest against mine, heartbeat loud and frantic. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. When she finally climbed off me, she walked into the bathroom without a word. I sat there, pants halfway down, shirt soaked from her rain-slicked body, staring at the wall like it might confess something to me. A few minutes later, the bathroom door opened again. But this time, she was different. Hair dry, wearing a towel, and she looked startled when she saw me still sitting there, half-dressed, frozen on the couch. What's wrong? She asked. I stared. She took a step forward, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. Ethan, I blinked. Where were you? She tilted her head. In the shower. You didn't hear the water running? My mouth felt like sandpaper. You weren't. I paused, searching her face for anything. Any trace of the woman who had just fucked me like a stranger. You were in the shower the whole time? Yeah. She frowned, then smiled, slow, careful. Are you okay? I stood up, zipping my pants slowly, heartbeat loud in my ears. She touched my arm. You look pale. I pulled away. She didn't push, just looked at me with that same unreadable smile. Like she knew everything. Like she was watching me rot from the inside and enjoying every second. I think I'm gonna lie down, I said. She nodded. I'll join you in a bit. As I walked down the hallway, I passed the entryway where her heels still lay, one upright, one on its side, like they'd been kicked off in a hurry. I stared at them, and then I saw something else on the floor. Something small, golden, glinting faintly in the hallway light. A single hoop earring. I didn't pick it up. I left it there, like a breadcrumb I wasn't ready to follow. She was trembling. Not dramatically, not the kind of trembling you notice right away. It was subtle, like the nervous shiver of someone walking barefoot across thin ice. I only felt it because her fingers brushed my collarbone as she pulled me closer, and they quivered like leaves in wind. She kissed me softly, so softly it felt like goodbye. This wasn't the same woman from the other night, the one who'd stormed in from the rain and ridden me like we were strangers in the dark. This one was cautious, delicate, even timid. Her eyes flicked to mine again and again, as if waiting for permission, waiting for the guilt to rise and tear through me. But it didn't. Not yet. I kissed her back. There was no hunger in it. No storm. It was slower than any kiss we'd shared in weeks. She climbed into bed beside me like a guest in someone else's home, hesitant, almost reverent. When we made love, it was quiet. No roughness. No games. She kissed every part of me like she was memorizing it. She clung to me, not to use me, but to feel held. Her legs wrapped around me loosely, not to pull me in, but to not drift away. Her body shook gently beneath mine. And just before she came, soft moans swallowed by the pillow, she whispered something I'd never heard before. I'm sorry. That was when the guilt returned, swift and blinding. Afterward, she curled into my chest, just like Megan always did. But her breath hitched once. Then again, and I realized she was crying. I didn't ask why. I didn't want to know. And maybe I already did. In the morning, I woke up alone. Again, sheets still warm. Her scent, floral and faintly citrus, lingered like a question. But she was gone. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering which sister had been in my arms that night. Who had touched me with those trembling hands? Who had whispered that apology like it was a sin for her to speak? I should have known. I should have known. Instead, I lay there, paralyzed by the fog of shame and memory, until my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Megan, you're doing great. The month's nearly over. Megan, can't wait to give you your gift. I stared at the screen for a long time. My fingers hovered, uncertain, then withdrew. What could I even say? What the hell was the gift? Forgiveness? Revenge? Or just some final layer of the game that would gut me from the inside out? I didn't have time to answer that before my phone buzzed again. New message, but not from Megan. Lily, you won't tell her, will you? My heart stopped. I sat up straight, the sheets pooling at my waist. Lily. I stared at her name like it was a confession in neon. My fingers moved before my brain could catch up. Me. Was it you last night? No answer. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then I sent another. Me, please. Still nothing. But I already knew. I played the moment over in my mind. The hesitation, the tears, the softness. It wasn't Megan. And it wasn't Amber either. Amber was bold, unapologetic, a wildfire barely controlled. But this was something else. A kind of quiet mourning. A need not for passion, but for connection. Lily had always been the most reserved of the three. The one who hung back at parties, who watched instead of spoke. She and I had never been close. Polite, yes. Warm, occasionally. But never intimate. Until now. And I'd crossed a line neither of us could erase. The shame hit me like a wave, knocking the air from my lungs. It wasn't just that I'd slept with her. It was that I'd known. I'd felt the difference, the hesitation, the fear. And I didn't stop. I told myself I needed to know. That the game demanded it. That Megan had given me permission. But that was a lie. Because Megan had never asked me to sleep with her sisters. She'd only asked me to tell them apart. That night, Megan came home late. She was glowing, radiant in a way that made my stomach twist. She poured herself a glass of wine, kicked off her shoes, and joined me on the couch as if nothing in our world had changed. "You okay?" she asked, curling her legs beneath her. "Just tired," I said. She reached over and took my hand. "You've been amazing." I couldn't look at her. Couldn't meet the eyes of the woman I'd promised my life to. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. 2 more days. My throat tightened. Until what? She just smiled. "That's the fun part," she whispered. "You don't know yet." Later, when she was asleep beside me, I crept into the bathroom and locked the door. I stared at myself in the mirror, shirtless and hollow-eyed, and I hated what I saw. Not because I'd been fooled, but because I'd wanted to be. The next morning, Megan was gone before I woke. Her pillow cold, her perfume still lingering. On the kitchen counter, her coffee mug sat empty, no sugar inside. That night, I found the earring. It was tucked between the couch cushions, not the bold gold hoops Amber wore, not Megan's subtle pearls. A small silver stud, understated, delicate, lilies. I sat there holding it, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd felt in weeks. I could have thrown it away. I could have hidden it. But instead, I left it on the nightstand, next to Megan's side of the bed. And I waited. The last 3 days felt like a final exam I hadn't studied for. Every glance from Megan was a riddle. Every kiss, a loaded question. The tension between us didn't feel like distance anymore. It felt like anticipation, like something slinking its way through the house, curling into bed with us at night, whispering just behind her lips. "Almost there. Just one more day," she said Thursday morning while brushing her teeth. She said it like she was talking about a birthday, like there was cake waiting. I watched her in the mirror. She looked exactly like she always had, flawless, effortless, untouchable. But I was different. I could see it in my own face. The sleeplessness, the guilt, the quiet panic rising in my chest every time she turned her back. She hadn't mentioned the earring. I'd left it there, gleaming like a landmine on her nightstand. She moved it, didn't throw it away, didn't confront me, just relocated it into her jewelry box, tucked between other small pieces of her sister's shared aesthetic, dainty, innocent, interchangeable. She was daring me to say something, and I didn't, because I knew what I'd say, and I was terrified of what she'd say back. The truth hung between us like perfume, invisible, inescapable. That night, we made love again, and she was Megan. I knew it. There was no confusion in her breath, no foreign rhythm in her hips, no borrowed words. She took her time with me, slow, intentional, almost reverent. "You're close," she whispered afterward, curled against my chest. "You almost made it." I didn't answer. My hand rested on the small of her back, fingers trembling with something I didn't want to name. She tilted her head, looked up at me with a sly smile. "You know what the gift is, don't you?" I met her eyes, struggling to keep my voice level. "No." Her smile deepened. "Then you don't know me as well as you thought." She kissed me once, slow and soft, then turned away and fell asleep as if nothing had cracked. But I couldn't sleep. My mind spun on a carousel of memory. Megan's voice, Amber's earrings, Lily's trembling hands, the text messages, the mirrored laughs, the wrong coffee. All the little fractures that led me here, lying beside a woman who could be my wife or her ghost or her judge. The next morning, she handed me a small envelope over breakfast. White. Sealed. No name. "What's this?" I asked. She just smiled. "Don't open it until tomorrow night." I turned it over in my hands. It felt too light to contain anything real, and far too heavy to be meaningless. She left before I could ask anything more. At work, I sat at my desk with the envelope in my drawer, checking it every hour like it might change shape. I barely spoke to anyone, barely moved. The air in my office felt too thick. Everything outside the game felt irrelevant now. Every conversation, every decision. It was all white noise under the weight of the question, what is the gift? Friday came. Megan was glowing. She wore a red dress I hadn't seen before, tight in the waist, subtle slit up the thigh, backless. Her heels clicked across the floor with purpose, echoing like a countdown. She poured us wine, cooked dinner, lit candles. She was seduction and warmth and certainty. "You made it," she said over the rim of her glass. I managed a weak smile. "Did I?" "You did better than I thought you would." She raised her glass to me. "So, the gift." I froze, my fingers tightening around my fork. She reached for her purse, pulled out a second envelope, thicker than the first, sealed with wax, red wax, a flourish that felt too ceremonial. Open it, she said. But I didn't move. My heart thumped hard behind my ribs. What is this? Her eyes glinted. Proof. Of what? That you failed. Her voice was calm, cruel in its restraint. And that you knew it. I swallowed hard. You told me to figure it out, to tell the difference. I did. Her smile didn't falter. And you didn't. Not when it mattered. I stared at her, everything in me going still. How many times? She leaned back in her chair, fingers tracing the stem of her glass. You slept with Amber twice, she said. Once in the rain. Once after brunch. I said nothing. You slept with Lily once. Her voice softened. That one hurt. I lowered my eyes. And me? She continued. Only twice. At the beginning. And last night. I looked up, choking back something sharp. Then why? Because I needed to know, she said. If you saw me, or just a version of me. My voice cracked. You orchestrated this. I gave you the challenge, she said, folding her napkin carefully. But you made your own choices. The silence between us stretched. Finally, she nodded toward the original envelope. Go ahead. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside was a single line, handwritten in her script. The gift is who you chose. I looked up, but she was already rising. I'll be staying at Amber's tonight, she said, reaching for her clutch. You can decide what to do next. Megan. She paused in the doorway. You said you knew me better than anyone. Her voice was calm, but I saw the fracture in her eyes. Now you know the truth. You knew all of us, and none of us. Then she left. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat there alone, the two envelopes in front of me, a half-drunk glass of wine in my hand, and the weight of every choice pressing down like gravity. The gift wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't revenge. It was a mirror, and I hated what I saw in it. I didn't sleep. I watched the shadows shift across the bedroom ceiling until morning light bled through the blinds, painting everything in muted gray. Megan hadn't come back. I knew she wouldn't. She'd made that choice long before the envelopes, long before the game even started. But I still waited. I waited through morning coffee, pacing the living room barefoot, the hardwood cool under my feet, the silence too loud to bear. I picked up the second envelope again. Proof. I didn't open it last night. Megan said it was proof I had failed, and I believed her. Still, I had to see. Inside were photos. Surveillance style, low quality, clearly taken from inside the house, and not by hidden cameras. These were deliberate. Shot on a phone, blurry around the edges, but damning. One showed Amber straddling me on the couch, her gold hoops catching the dim light. Another showed Lily curled against me in bed, her hand resting on my chest like she belonged there. One of them was of me, alone, staring into a mirror, haunted. I didn't know who had taken them. Probably all of them. Maybe even Megan herself. That was the game, after all. Catch me in confusion, catalog the collapse. I should have felt angry. I didn't. Just hollow. Amber. She was the constant in my thoughts now, pressing harder than guilt. Not just because I'd slept with her, twice, apparently, but because she hadn't flinched. She'd looked into my eyes and said, "Don't stop," and something inside me had obeyed without question. Her energy had always been chaotic, but underneath it there'd been a pull I didn't recognize at first. I needed to know why. I drove to her place that afternoon, a small brick townhome tucked behind a line of red oaks. I hadn't been there since a birthday party last year. A blur of white wine, too much laughing, Megan glowing on her sister's arm. The knock felt too loud. Amber opened the door like she'd been waiting. She wasn't surprised. No tension in her shoulders. Just a quiet inhale. Then, "I knew you'd come." I stepped inside. She was barefoot, in jeans and an oversized tee that slid off one shoulder. No makeup. No hoops. Just Amber. "Where's Megan?" I asked. "She's not here," she said, walking toward the kitchen. "She left this morning." I followed her to the island. She poured 2 glasses of water and slid one toward me like we were about to talk about the weather. "Why?" I asked. She raised an eyebrow. "Why didn't you stop it?" I said, voice tight. "You knew. You knew what it was doing to her, to all of us." Amber didn't flinch. "You're acting like this was one-sided. You're her sister. And I'm still a person," she said. "Don't act like you didn't want it." I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because she was right. "I didn't mean to," she said after a beat. At first, it was a joke. A game. Megan told us about the challenge. Thought it would be harmless fun. She said you'd figure us out instantly. That you were sharp, observant, devoted. That if anyone could pass her test, it'd be you. And you played along. She asked us to. But you didn't stop. No, Amber said. Because I didn't want to. That silence, the one that follows truths too raw to touch, wrapped around us. She said I'd know. I muttered. That I'd know when it wasn't her. Amber nodded. You did. You always hesitated with me. The first time, I saw it in your eyes. You kissed me like you were drowning and reaching for air you weren't sure was safe. I laughed bitterly. Romantic. She walked around the island, stopped a foot away from me. But you didn't stop. And neither did I. Her eyes were darker than Megan's. Or maybe I was just imagining it. Maybe I needed to believe that something, anything, made her different. You wanted to win, she said. But somewhere along the line, you forgot what you were playing for. I thought it was Megan. Amber shook her head slowly. No, you wanted it to be Megan. But you felt something else. She was too close now. The space between us pulsed. Are you saying you fell for me? I asked, half mocking. I'm saying I didn't expect you, she said softly. I didn't expect to care. But the more we pretended, the more it stopped feeling like pretending. My chest tightened. I started checking my texts more, she continued. Caring what you thought. Wanting to look like her, but not too much. Just enough for you to stay. I started thinking about you when I wasn't supposed to. Amber. She placed a hand on my chest, not seductively, steadily. You were supposed to fail the game, she whispered. But you didn't just fail, Ethan. You felt. That's what broke it. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Because as much as I wanted to be disgusted with myself, I couldn't deny it. When I thought about those nights, the heat, the tangled sheets, the whispered pleas, it wasn't Megan who surfaced first in my mind. It was Amber. And it wasn't just about sex. It was about the way she looked at me afterward, vulnerable. The way her laughter slipped out when she forgot to hold it back. The way she said my name like it meant something. I reached for her hand. Just held it. No moves. No heat. Just something real. I don't know what happens now, I said. Neither do I, she replied. But I didn't want to lie to you anymore. Do you regret it? She paused. No, neither did I. That scared me more than anything. It didn't happen like I expected. No yelling. No slamming doors. No broken glass. It started with Lily. She showed up on our doorstep the next evening, soaking from the drizzle outside, eyes rimmed red, sleeves tugged over her palms like a child bracing for punishment. Megan and I had barely spoken since the night of the envelopes. She'd returned quietly that morning, showered, dressed, and moved through the house like a stranger. No accusations. No tears. Just silence so thick it hollowed the walls. When the doorbell rang, Megan didn't move. I opened it. Lily looked up at me and whispered, "Is she home?" I nodded once and stepped aside. Megan was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of wine she hadn't sipped from. When she saw Lily, her face didn't change. No welcome. No warmth. Just that eerie stillness she'd perfected over the last few days. Lily stood there, dripping on the floor, hugging herself like she might fall apart. "I'm sorry," she said. Megan didn't blink. "For what?" "I didn't think it would go that far," Lily whispered. I didn't think he'd. Would what?" Megan's voice was so calm it felt surgical. Lily looked at me, then away. "He didn't know it was me." "You didn't stop him either," Megan said. A long pause. "No," Lily admitted. "I didn't." Silence stretched again, thick and unbreathable. Then Megan laughed. But it wasn't a laugh. It was too sharp, too hollow. "Was it good?" she asked, looking directly at her sister. Lily's lip trembled. "Don't. Did you cry afterward?" Megan continued. "Because I bet that really sealed the fantasy for him. He loves that wounded animal thing. Makes him feel like a protector." "Jesus, Megan," I muttered. She turned to me, eyes gleaming. "Tell me I'm wrong." I looked away. That was all the answer she needed. Her voice turned steel. "You failed the test, Ethan. Not because you slept with them. That part was predictable. But because you enjoyed it. Because part of you wanted them to be me. And part of you didn't care when they weren't." "I didn't." "Yes, you did." Amber's voice came from the doorway. We all turned. She stood there like a storm, arms folded, eyes already burning. "You wanted to test him," Amber said. "You set this whole thing up like a morality play and expected to come out the hero." Megan's expression didn't shift. Don't pretend you didn't love playing the understudy. Amber stepped inside, closing the door behind her. You wanted him to break. You just didn't expect he'd fall for me in the process. The air cracked. Megan's hand shot out and slapped her. A single sound. Sharp. Final. Amber didn't flinch. Just looked at her, eyes wet but unblinking. I didn't plan it, she whispered. But it happened. You were supposed to help me, Megan hissed. Not steal him. I didn't steal anything, Amber said. He chose. Megan turned to me. Is that true? I opened my mouth, but the truth stuck in my throat like glass. Because yes, I had chosen. Not consciously, not with intent. But in the quiet hours, in the spaces between guilt and clarity, I'd found Amber's face rising from the haze. I'd reached for her in memory more than I ever should have. And not just for sex. For comfort. For connection. For something that felt real, even when it wasn't supposed to be. Megan saw the answer in my silence. Her face twisted, not in pain, in disgust. You wanted to be fooled, she said. All along. No, I whispered. I wanted to believe I knew you. You didn't. Her voice broke. You never did. Lily started crying softly. Amber moved toward her, but she shook her head and stepped back. The sisters, 3 parts of the same impossible mirror, stood divided. I'm leaving, Megan said suddenly. I've got a bag packed. Papers will come next week. What? I breathed. She looked at me like I was a stranger. I can't be married to someone who let a game become a preference. I stepped forward, desperate. It wasn't a preference. It was confusion. It was desire, she snapped. And now I know what kind. She turned to Amber, eyes full of a venom I'd never seen. You can have him. He's already yours. Amber didn't respond. Megan walked past me, past the wine, past the photo on the mantle of our wedding day. That frozen smile that now felt centuries old. She paused at the door. I was willing to forgive you, she said. I was even ready to laugh about it someday. But you didn't just fail the test. You fell in love with the lie. Then she left. The door slammed like a judge's gavel. The 3 of us stood there, lost in the wreckage. Lily sank to the couch and buried her face in her hands. Amber stared at the floor. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding like I'd run a mile. The experiment was over. The aftermath had begun. The house felt bigger after she left. Not empty, hollow. Like someone had scraped out all the warmth and left the shell behind. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway. Her toothbrush sat untouched in the holder. The pillow on her side of the bed remained fluffed, as if she'd return at any moment. But I knew better. Megan was gone. Not stormed out in fury. That would have left a trail of slammed doors and broken things. No, she evaporated. Quiet. Clinical. The way you turn off a machine before taking it apart. The silence she left behind wasn't peace. It was punishment. The first week, I walked the house like a ghost. Made coffee I never drank. Opened drawers without knowing what I was looking for. I kept the blinds half closed, as if blocking out the world would slow the way it was unraveling. Lily moved out. No goodbye, no note. Just a text. I'm sorry. I can't be part of this anymore. A few hours later, her car was gone, and the guest room was stripped bare. A small stack of unused perfume samples lay forgotten on the desk, the same ones she used to mirror Megan's scent. I stood there for a long time, staring at those little bottles, trying to remember which night she had smelled like lilac. Which night I had kissed someone who wasn't my wife. I didn't cry, but I should have. Amber disappeared next. No note. No calls. Just silence. I texted. Once. Then again. Then I stopped. She had told me she didn't mean to fall. That none of it was planned. But the weight of her absence felt like a choice. Like she needed to vanish before we mistook desire for destiny. Maybe she had loved me in her own, chaotic way. Maybe that made it worse. The silence between us was louder than Megan's fury. And me? I stayed. In the house with 3 sets of footsteps embedded in the carpet and none left to walk them. I thought about the game every day. Not just the sex, though that haunted me in 1,000 fractured memories, but the moments, the breathless in-betweens, the times I swore I knew, only to realize how easy it had become to lie to myself. There was a night, maybe 2 weeks after Megan left, when I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, sheets tangled around my legs like vines. And then I felt it, phantom hands on my skin. Not just a touch, but theirs. All of them. Megan's confident grip. Amber's wild, breathless grasp. Lily's trembling, almost reverent touch. They layered over each other like ghosts. I couldn't separate them anymore. When I closed my eyes, I saw all three. I didn't know which memory belonged to which woman. And the part that terrified me most? I didn't care. What mattered wasn't who I had loved during those weeks. It was that love, or something like it, had grown in the shadows. In the pretending. In the game that blurred lines until there were none. I found myself reaching for Megan's side of the bed at night. Not because I missed her, though I did, but because I missed the weight, the certainty, the presence of someone who had once belonged to me, and whom I had let become a riddle. I replayed every moment in my mind like a director watching failed takes. The text from Lily. You won't tell her, will you? Amber's whisper in the dark. Don't stop. Megan's final words at the door. You fell in love with the lie. And they were all right. In some fractured, fucked up way, every one of them had spoken truth. One morning, I sat on the floor of the closet. Her clothes still hung there, untouched, a museum of color and fabric. I ran my hand across a red blouse I hadn't seen her wear since the dinner when the game began. The night she said, maybe we should put that to the test. That night, her eyes sparkled like mischief. Her voice was silk wrapped around a knife. I remember thinking it was flirtation. In hindsight, it was a loaded gun. The test had never been about winning. It had been about knowing. Knowing who she was. Who I was. Who we were when the masks fell. And I had failed. Not because I was unfaithful, but because I couldn't recognize the woman I married. Even when she stood right in front of me. I started seeing a therapist. I told her about the experiment, the sisters, the challenge. She asked if I felt manipulated. I told her yes. Then I told her the truth. I let it happen. Because part of me had wanted the chaos. Had craved it. It gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Urgency. Lust. A sense of rediscovery. Even if it was all wrapped in lies. She asked if I still loved Megan. I didn't have an answer. What I missed most was certainty. The easy trust. The lazy affection. The way she used to bite her lip when she read in bed. The way she drank from my water glass without asking. Not grand gestures, but quiet knowing. And now I didn't know anything at all. Weeks passed. I started putting the house back together. Rearranged furniture. Donated things. Put the photos in a box, not because I wanted to erase her, but because I needed space to breathe. I kept one picture on the mantle. A candid shot. Megan laughing, Lily mid-eye roll, Amber grinning in the background. It was taken before the game. Before everything broke. Sometimes I sat and stared at it, wondering if they missed me. Wondering if any of them truly saw me. Or if I was just a role they each played off. The silence didn't answer. But it stayed with me. Like a companion I couldn't shake. It was a storm again. The kind that rattles the windows and rolls like a drumbeat through your bones. Like nature reminding you how small you really are. Thunder cracked overhead. The lights flickered once. Then again. And I thought, here we go? I was alone. At least, I thought I was. Until the knock. 3 soft raps. Then silence. I froze. The kind of silence that bends the air around it. I sat on the couch for a second longer, heart thudding like a warning. Then I stood, slowly, and walked to the door. I didn't expect her. Not then. Not after all the weeks of nothing. Not after Megan's storm. Not after Lily's disappearance. But there she was. Amber. Soaked through. Jeans plastered to her legs. Hair dripping in wild curls down her back. She looked like she had walked through the storm barefoot, and maybe she had. She was trembling. I came to say goodbye, she said. I stared at her. No words. Just the rush of rain behind her, and the soft rasp of her voice slicing through it. Are you leaving town? I asked. She nodded. I can't stay here anymore. I can't walk into a coffee shop without wondering if someone's watching. I can't look at myself in the mirror and not think of her. What I did. What we did. I stepped aside. She hesitated, then stepped in. The door closed behind her with a whisper, sealing us in together again. 2 broken halves of something that had never truly belonged. She stood there in the hallway, dripping rainwater on the floor, her eyes scanning the space like it was both familiar and foreign. I shouldn't have come, she said. But you did. She looked at me. Her eyes weren't guarded this time. They were wide, wet, unflinching. I needed to see you one last time, she said. Before I disappeared for good. I swallowed hard. Why now? Because if I left without seeing you, she whispered, I would have spent the rest of my life wondering what might have been. I took a breath. Steadying. Shaky. I think about you every day, I said. She blinked. slowly, like a confession had touched her skin. I shouldn't have, I added. But I do. We stood in the center of the room, inches apart, the sound of the rain drumming over the roof like it was trying to drown out our words. Everything about this was wrong, she said. I know. Megan didn't deserve it. No, I agreed. Neither did Lily. No. She paused. Do we? That one stuck in the air. Amber took another step forward. When I was pretending to be her, I thought it would feel like acting, like a performance. But it didn't. Not with you. Because I saw through it. I asked. No. Her eyes shimmered. Because with you it felt like I was me. I looked at her. This woman who had worn my wife's face, mimicked her gestures, even used her voice. But somehow, underneath all that illusion, something had been real. A heartbeat out of rhythm. A breath that didn't belong to anyone else. Do you love me? I asked. She didn't hesitate. Yes. That word landed heavier than it should have. And if you stay? I said. What does that look like? Amber shook her head, rainwater flying. It can't be because we feel guilty. Or because we're lonely. Or because it's easier than being alone. Then why? She took my hand. Her fingers were cold. But her grip was strong. Stay because you want me, she said. Not because you lost Megan. Not because Lily's gone. Not because you hate what happened. I stared at our joined hands. I can't promise I won't think of them, I said. I don't want you to, she replied. She stepped closer, chest brushing mine. I just want to start where we are. No lies. No pretending. No masks. The thunder cracked again. Closer this time. I kissed her. Slow. Not desperate. Not hungry. Real. Her lips were trembling, but she didn't pull away. Her arms wrapped around me slowly, like a question being answered. We stood like that for what felt like forever, just holding, breathing, letting the storm carry away the shame. Later, we lay on the couch under a blanket, listening to the rain. Her head on my chest, my fingers in her hair. I'll have to tell Megan, I said. Amber nodded. She already knows. She'll hate me. She already does. I sighed. She's not the only one, I added. I know, she whispered. I hate myself some days, too. But not now. Amber shook her head. Right now, I just feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. That scared me. Because maybe she was. And maybe I was, too. Even if we didn't deserve it. The divorce papers arrived by courier. No note. No message. Just a thick envelope in a sterile manila wrapper, slid under the front door like a bullet wrapped in paper. Megan's name was signed at the bottom in clean, careful ink, untouched by hesitation. It was the neatest ending she could have given me. I stared at the documents in silence for a long time, then signed my name beside hers, pen shaking just once before the final stroke. I didn't cry. Not then. Because something about that signature, about making it final, gave me permission to let go. The guilt didn't evaporate, but it shifted. Moved from being a dagger in my ribs to a dull ache under my skin, one I'd probably carry forever. Amber moved in a few weeks later. Quietly. No fanfare. No announcement. She brought only what she needed. A suitcase, a backpack, a few books, and a small ceramic mug with a chipped rim that she refused to throw away. She left behind everything that reminded her of who she had been before. The understudy. The mimic. The game piece. We were both still haunted. But at least now, we were haunted together. We sold the house. Too many memories. Too many ghosts in the walls. And not all of them were ours. Megan's laughter still echoed in the halls some days, faint as dust. I'd walk into the bedroom and see flashes of her reflection, in a mirror, a frame, the way light curved along the wall. I couldn't stay, so we left, moved to a quiet coastal town, far from anyone who knew our names or what we'd done. A place with salty air, creaking docks, and silence that didn't punish. We bought a small cottage with peeling paint and a crooked fence. Amber planted lavender in the front garden. I built a bookcase with my own hands, even though the top shelf still leans a little to the left. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We lived quietly. No lies. No tests. No masks. Mornings were slow. She'd hum in the kitchen while making coffee, and I'd sit by the window with the paper, pretending not to watch her. Some nights, we still didn't talk. The silence would settle around us. Not uncomfortable, just familiar. A shared reminder of how far we'd come and how easily it could have ended differently. Every once in a while, I'd get a postcard from Lily. The first came 2 months after the move. Postmarked Colorado. The mountains are quiet. I like it here. I hope you both find peace. L. Amber cried when she read it. Not sobs, just quiet tears down her cheeks, her thumb running gently over the handwriting. I never heard from Megan. Not directly, but I saw her once. In a grocery store, of all places. 6 months after the move, while visiting the next town over. She was with someone. Tall, well-dressed. He reached for a bottle of wine while she laughed at something he whispered in her ear. She looked radiant, like a woman who had shed her past without apology. She didn't see me. I didn't speak. And I was grateful for that, because I didn't want to ruin her laughter. Amber and I never talked about the gift again. Not out loud. But sometimes, when the ocean wind picked up and the sky turned that bruised purple before a storm, she'd curl up beside me on the old porch swing and ask the same question. If you had known it was me from the start, would you have stopped? And every time, I'd look her in the eyes, the ones that used to wear another's shape, and say, no. Because the truth was, I didn't fall in love despite the lies. I fell in love through them, through the pretending, the switching, the game that stripped away every comfort and left nothing but raw, exposed truth. I had lost my marriage, my sense of self, even my moral compass. But what I gained was someone real, not perfect, not untainted, but real. We built something from ashes, something that might not last forever, something that, even now, still carried shadows from the past. But it was ours, and I finally understood what Megan had meant when she wrote that line on the card. The gift is who you chose. Because in the end, the test wasn't just about recognition. It was about reckoning. And I had made my choice, even if it cost me everything else.